Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Introduce I am Rorosita, NIMHA 0122046 will present the novel Pride and Prejudice. Previously, Pride and Prejudice was a romance novel by Jane Austen set in the 19th century. The first thing we will discuss is the biography of Jane Austen as the author of the novel Pride and Prejudice. So as you see, Jane Austen was born in December 16, 1775 in England, and she died at July 18, 1817 on her 41 age in Winchester, England. This is her notable works. It's Emma, Lady Susan, Mansfield Park, Northanger Abbey, Persuasion, Pride and Prejudice, and Sense and Sensibility. Next, we move to history of personal life of Jane Austen. So, Jane Austen is an English writer who first gave the novel its distinctly modern character through her treatment of ordinary people in everyday life. She published 4 novels during her lifetime. It's Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, and Emma. In this and in Persuasion and Northanger Abbey, she vividly depicted English middle class life during the early 19th century. Her novels defined the era as novels of manner, but they also become timeless classics that remained critical and popular successes for over 2 centuries after her death. Austen gained status after her death. Her 6 full-length novels have since rarely been out of print. A significant transition in her reputation occurred in 1833 when her novels were republished in Richard S. Bentley Standard Novel Series, illustrated by Ferdinand Pickering and sold as a set. They gradually gained wide acclaim and popular readership. In 1869, 52 years after her death, her novel's publication of a memoir of Jane Austen introduced a compelling version of her writing career and supposedly an eventful life to an eager audience. She has inspired a large number of critical essays and literary anthologies. Her novels have inspired many films, from Pride and Prejudice to Sense and Sensibility and Love and Friendship in 2016. We move to synopsis of the story. Elizabeth Bennet and Fitzwilliam Darcy were totally incompatible even since they didn't know each other. Elizabeth apprised Mr. Darcy as a proud man and often annoyed. Meanwhile, Mr. Darcy finds Elizabeth to be unrefined and too often prejudiced. For a long time, they were enemies with each other, often throwing sarcasm at each other. The hatred, without them realizing it, gradually became a deep attraction. As time went by, Elizabeth saw another side of Fitzwilliam Darcy, that he was not just an arrogant or haughty man as she had thought. In the novel, there are scenes that have similarities with the author's life story. That is, when Elizabeth Bennet wanted to get married to one of her distant relatives. This story seems to be lived from the love story that didn't reach Jane Austen with Tom Levroy. At first, Jane's mother began to match Jane with men from prominent circles, but Jane did not like her. Even though these men, not only from a distinguished family, but also has a kind heart. Unfortunately, this man is not smart enough and his conversation is not connected with Jane. Some people who are close to Jane so that Jane married him even though they did not love him because at least the man is property could later support Jane. But Jane has strong principles. She doesn't want to marry based solely on status and wealth. Next, we move to analysis character of this novel. The first one is Elizabeth Bennet. The novel is protagonist. The second daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, Elizabeth is the most intelligent and sensible of the five Bennet sisters. She is well-read and quick-witted with a tongue that occasionally proves too sharp for her. Her realization of Darcy is essential goodness eventually trumps over her initial prejudice against him. Next, we move to Fitzwilliam Darcy, a wealthy gentleman, the master of Pemberley and the nephew of Lady Catherine de Bourgh. Though Darcy is intelligent and honest, his excess of pride causes him to look down on his social inferiors. Over the course of the novel, he tempers his class consciousness and learns to admire and love Elizabeth for her strong character. Next, we move to Jane Bennet, the eldest and the most beautiful Bennet sister. Jane is more reserved and gentler than Elizabeth. The easy pleasantness with which she and Bingley interact contrasts starkly with the mutual distaste that marks the encounters between Elizabeth and Darcy. And the last one is Charles Bingley. Darcy is considerably wealthy best friend. Bingley is purchased of Netherfield, an estate near the Bennets, serves as the impetus for the novels. He is a genial, well-intentioned gentleman whose easygoing nature contrasts with Darcy's initially discourteous demeanor. He is blissfully uncaring about class difference. Next, we move to analysis story of Pride and Prejudice. Written from the perspective of Elizabeth, the novel explores a number of themes such as love, marriage, pride, prejudice, class, reputation, and many others. As the title of the novel suggests, both pride and prejudice play a vital role in the novel. Pride is pronounced through the character of Darcy and prejudice is highlighted through Elizabeth. Darcy acts snobbishly during his first meeting with Elizabeth that eventually makes her hate him. His pride blinds him to the good qualities of Elizabeth, and her prejudice blinds her to see through his outward nature. It takes time for them to realize and evolve out of their pride and prejudice. Besides, Elizabeth Darcy, too out of his pride, is exposed to prejudice over the people below his social class and economical status. And finally, we enter the moral message of Pride and Prejudice. The main message of Pride and Prejudice are the first impressions aren't always correct, that love and respect are the key to a happy marriage, and that inflexible gender roles are unfairly limiting. Well, I think that's all for my presentation. I'm sure this presentation isn't perfect enough. For that, I'm so sorry. Finally, I say thank you and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bye-bye.